Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is Daryl Gordon, and I'm Vice President of Marketing, and thank you for joining us today. So this is number 28 of our webinar series. We're pleased you joined us. If you missed any of the others, you can find them all on our website. A couple of very quick housekeeping tools, because we want to get straight into our speaker session, is we're going to use the chat functionality for questions today. You'll find that in the menu bar for Zoom. You can submit questions to our guest speakers at any time you like. We're scheduled to run 25 minutes today. Apologies if we don't get to answer all of your questions, but we will follow up with them afterwards. And as I mentioned, it is being recorded, so you will be able to get copies of the session afterwards on our website. Today's topic is how important is financial wellness to your programming? And Dr. Tyler Amell, the Chief Health and Strategy Officer at MediKeeper, is going to guide us through this conversation with a guest speaker. So Dr. Amell, we're excited to hear what you have planned for us today.
Great. Thank you so much, Daryl, and good morning, everyone. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to join us here today. So as Daryl mentioned, we have a great guest speaker. I'd like to introduce Sam Evans. He is with Enrich in the Workplace. Sam, do you want to say hi to everybody?
Yeah, hello everyone. Appreciate you joining today. Look forward to having a good conversation around financial wellness.
Great, thanks. So Sam's contact information is up on the slide for his email and the web address for Enrich, which is a really cool product, very compelling, very useful. From an affiliations and disclosures perspective, as Daryl mentioned, I'm the Chief Health and Strategy Officer at MediKeeper. I am also on faculty at Pacific Coast University for Workplace Health Sciences. I also sit on the WellCoA Advisory Council and the Executive Board of the Work Wellness Institute. My contact information is at the bottom, on the bottom left. Feel free to send me an email or follow on LinkedIn. I'm very active in LinkedIn, and I promote a lot of evidence-informed practice and research in workplace health and productivity. We do like to forecast what's coming on for speaking engagements. As many of you know, I do a lot of speaking globally on the topic. So these are just a select few ones that are probably of interest to folks on the audience today. Coming up in November is a session in San Antonio, which is how to prepare for a healthy retirement. So things that you can do today. And recently confirmed I'll be giving the keynote on return on investment and value on investment of wellness programming at the Health Benefits Conference and Expo in Clearwater, Florida in January 2025. So very excited about that. So stay tuned. There's going to be a lot of really cool speakers at that event. Definitely should be something on your radar if you're in the area or you feel like traveling to Florida in January. So for today's topic, we're very much focused in on something that should be of concern to most of us, and that is financial wellness. Financial health is so very important to each and every one of us. I don't think there's too many people on the webinar today who don't have to worry at all about finances. I know it's at the back of my head constantly. I've got two small kids. How are they going to fare? How can I set them up for success? How can I save? How can I save for their education? How can I save for pretty much everything? And then, of course, this is something that, given the economic state that we're in, and let's face it, the economy is actually doing quite well right now. We're not in a recession or anything like that, but we do have inflationary pressures that have been driving up the cost, which is impacting a number of folks. So I'll cover some of the background data as to why financial wellness should be on your radar and why it should be part of your health programming. And then Sam is going to share some of his practical solutions that are available to organizations to better support their people when it comes to financial wellness. And I think this is going to be quite useful for a lot of folks because very practical solutions that can be applied and that are very much in demand from employees out there, as you'll see with some of the data that I'm going to share. So with that being said, let's start in on the data. So this is the year-over-year change in consumer price index. up until April. So these are the most recent data. And obviously high housing costs, gas prices, and things like that, given, the issues in the Middle East and with Russia driving up those commodity prices. The red line is all items, so sitting about 3.4%. When you exclude energy and food, the prices change a little bit. Same thing with shelter. So this gives you a pretty good idea as to where things were prior to the pandemic, sitting at just under 2% or so, which is usually where central governments like to have inflation. Now, as we entered into the pandemic, there's a downward shift into that. So things got a heck of a lot cheaper, supply demand curves changed rather dramatically. And then coming out of the pandemic, we saw this rather significant increase in the CPI. And that has continued. If we look at the economics, it has abated. So it's slowed down a little bit. It's still much higher than we expect, but it's nowhere near as high on a month over month, year over year increase that we were seeing in 2021, 2022, and heading into 2023. Now, this is one way to look at it, but for me, it doesn't make the most sense possible. I like to look at real world numbers and look at how things have changed over the past couple of years. So if we draw a line in the sand, February 2020, just prior to the pandemic, and we look at different buckets of items using the CPI, we can see that all in all, we're dealing at about 19%, 18.7% increase in the cost of a lot of these items in real dollars. So things that cost X amount back in February 2020 now cost on average about 18.7% more. And these data are through the end of Q3 2023. So since then, obviously looking at compounded interest, we do have slightly higher increases there. So transportation, food and beverages, housing is a big one, especially as of late, given the mortgage situation. Other goods and services, recreational costs, medical care, apparel, so clothing and education and communication. So this is a better way to look at it from my perspective, but this is the way that I truly like to look at things, because these is real world dollars compounded over the past 20 years. So most of us are old enough that we remember the early 2000s, and we probably remember what things cost back then. Now, because of changes in productivity and demand and advances in technology, some things actually decrease in price while other increase in price. So if we look at things like televisions, toys, software, cellular phones, even through the pandemic, we saw decreases to the tune of, it's probably 75%, close to 100% for televisions, decreasing since 2000. Now, some other things remained somewhat stable up until the pandemic. So clothing, household furnishings, new cars. But if you look at the new cars, you can see that, ever since the pandemic, those new car costs have gone up, and there's a straight line there. And there were some supply issues earlier on that caused that. But now, there's a lot more factors in play with regards to why we're seeing huge increases and have seen those significant increases. But look at things like housing, food and beverage, childcare, medical care, college textbooks. A colleague of mine wrote a really good textbook for students, and at the time it was selling for $100 exactly in the student bookstore. And so I asked him, I go, how much of that do you earn? He said about $2. So he was actually earning $2 and 98% middleman cost in there, which drove him crazy because he wants more people to read his book. But unfortunately, who can afford to get a book like that? And this book was only about 120 pages. So he was earning about $1 per 100 pages. College tuition and fees huge, but look at hospital services, healthcare, greater than 200% increase in there. So this factors into our ability to pay for things on a daily basis, simply because the cost of everything has increased. Meanwhile, wages have not kept pace with inflation whatsoever. So we have this increase in inflation, and we have wages that have been not necessarily stagnant. They have been growing, but they haven't been growing at the same rate as inflationary pressures have led to these increasing costs. So when we think about what's our retirement going to be like, let alone how are we actually going to live through these next couple of years. You can see that if something doesn't happen, either the prices come down, most likely not going to happen, or wages don't keep pace, we're going to have a lot of people in need of support. So how many people, you ask? Well, if we look at the data, we're sitting at about 78% of people in the US who are living paycheck to paycheck. Now, these data are variable based upon the source. Some people say it's as low as 60%, and some people say it's as high as 85%. So, that's a pretty significant number. I use 78% because this was part of a larger study and based upon some other data in there. But even at 60% people living paycheck to paycheck, that's a big number. And so people are under duress, people are under stress. There's a lot of factors at play here which are impacting them. And it's actually impacting their health, which is why we link in financial wellness and financial well-being strategies back into health and productivity solutions. Now, I've been in the workplace health and productivity space for a long time. I used to be a very senior leader at a very large EAP company. And when we look at why people reach out for support from EAPs, it's usually because of a couple of different reasons. And one of those reasons is interpersonal conflict, either between spouses or partners, and usually due to money or due to childcare, or how to raise your child, or how to deal with children. And the rest of it is interpersonal conflict in the workplace, so between workers and supervisors and so on, and that sort of thing. So when you look at why people have historically reached out to EAP, that's why they do it. And now, when we look at data a little bit more recently, we're seeing that the financial implications of people reaching out for EAP solutions are greater. And in fact, PricewaterhouseCoopers released that they do a survey every year on financial well-being, and the most recent one was quite telling. From a few months ago, 57% of people say finances are the top cause of stress in their lives. And of course, that is leading to interpersonal conflict between spouses and everything that goes along with that. So when we start to unpack these data a little bit more, we can see that there's a lot at play here. So again, these are PricewaterhouseCoopers data. Financial stress extends beyond the bank account to key drivers of health and well-being. So when you ask people, and this is a representative sample of people, in the past year, financial stress and money worries have had a negative impact on sleep. So 56% of people indicate that. On mental health, of course, stress, depression, anxiety, these sort of things are major issues for people dealing with things, which is the pressures of daily life today. And of course, a central pillar for well-being. Self-esteem sitting at 50%, physical health at 44%, which again is not surprising because you can't treat mental health and physical health differently. Health is health. And a lot of issues that we have with stress, with anxiety, and even depression manifest themselves on the physical side of health as well. Increasing in heart rates, digestive problems, your immune system is suppressed. There's a whole host of research that shows that when people are stressed and don't get enough sleep, you have some substantial issues on the physical health side. Relationships at 40% of an increase here. So again, useful information. Now, if we look at compensation in relation to inflationary pressures, 41% back in 2021 said that their wages weren't keeping pace with cost of living, and that was causing stress. Well, that increased to 52% in 2022 and 59% in 2023. And lo and behold, I would think that when we get around to collecting these data later on this year in Q3, we're probably going to see close to 70% of people indicating that that is the case. Now, people who are financially stressed are more than 5 times as likely to admit personal finance issues are a distraction at work. And again, that's something that is intuitively something that we see a fair bit in the research. It's very hard to concentrate on doing your work if your mind is elsewhere, if you're worried about where your next meal is going to come from, or if you're going to be able to afford rent, or if you're ever going to be able to afford a house. So these sort of issues weigh heavily on people. And then, of course, when we look at things through the HR lens, engagement is one of the most significant areas that HR and human capital specialists tend to look at. So when we look at people who are engaged at work and stratify the data by those who are stressed, the black lines, and those who are not stressed about their finances, you see a pretty clear distinction. People who are stressed are a heck of a lot less engaged than people who are not stressed. And this goes to relate to the values that they have, the energy in the workplace, the recommendation for employers, and people who are basically proud to work for their company. And so there's a lot of factors at play here that are impacting individuals. Now, if we look at, again, that PricewaterhouseCoopers survey, the majority of employees, 74%, really want help with their finances. And this could take a lot of different shapes, which Sam is going to talk about here in a minute. And then if we look at even more recent data that were released just in the past couple of weeks, employees really want benefits that help them save money. So 78% say benefits would cause them to recommend their employer to others, while 65% say it will help them be more engaged in the workplace. So if employee engagement is one of the central focuses of your HR and your people strategy, well, then this is something that people are yearning for, they're asking for, because we do have some solutions in place that can help mitigate this risk. And so that's really what we're here to talk about now that we've hopefully made a pretty good case. We know that there's a relationship between stress and physical health, impacts sleep, coping skills, coping mechanisms. Alcohol, for example, is a very effective short-term coping strategy, but an extremely ineffective and destructive long-term coping mechanism. But during the pandemic and since then, we've seen a huge amount of increase in utilizations of substances over time. And then, of course, there is the issue of delayed healthcare. So people are not taking part in preventative screenings, preventative things that would help them alleviate risk to their health down the line, not treating things because they can't afford it. And of course, this snowballs and things get worse and worse and worse. So Sam, let's talk about the practical solutions that you've seen here as we go through. And I know this is a lot of data, there's a lot of information there, but you're the expert here. What can organizations do in this sense?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Tyler. So, I think it's interesting, obviously great presentation you put together that really helps to build the case for financial wellness. And it can be tough for employers today. The inflation affects not only the employees, but for these companies that are selling products and services as well. The revenue that they're getting is not necessarily keeping pace with inflation. So how can you justify the cost of adding an additional program like financial wellness? It's not an easy thing to do. So, you pulled some great data from that PricewaterhouseCoopers survey that we look at every year as well. But, how does it translate to the bottom line for these organizations? So it's really important that we're able to demonstrate not only to folks in benefits, but to the C-suite as well, that this is something that can positively affect the bottom line. You can look at financial wellness from a couple of angles. And from benefits, you can look at it from, what opportunities can I have from providing a financial wellness program? So things like, can it help with corporate culture? Can it help round out our existing wellness program where we're missing that financial pillar? Can we point it towards our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives? We can use this to, try and improve engagement with other benefits and services that we're offering that employees may not really understand what the true value is. So
I
those
think
are
that's
some
a
of the
key part, Sam, because
yeah,
a lot of people out there don't even know what they have access to from a benefit perspective.
right.
And EAP is a really good
Yeah.
example. I'm guessing financial wellness is probably on that list as well.
Indeed. And yeah, and you can just keep kind of clicking through some of these slides, which were just drawing some parallels between financial and physical health. So the opportunity side is interesting. A lot of employers are looking at this as, what kind of problems can this solve for us, or can we or are occurring because we don't have employees who are financially stable. So, most typically, employees who are not able to make ends meet are much more likely to be looking for a different job. The only way out that they can see is, I need to make more money, which is obviously not a great scenario. And the other big one, why we have these slides here comparing financial and physical health. So if you advance to the next one here, you can see that not only are they very similar to each other, but if you're able to move to the next slide, you can see that they actually impact each other as well. So having issues with financial health will also cause issues with physical health, as Tyler pointed out, hypertension, stress, being distracted at work, not as productive. So as far as how we can address this, there are solutions out there, and we work with companies large and small: Coca-Cola, Dell Computers, DuPont, Boeing, all the way down to companies with less than 100 employees. But there are digital solutions that we have out there that typically can see 30-40% engagement within the first year, that allow employees to learn about managing their finances at their pace and the way that they want to learn. So that would be digital courses, videos, articles, interactive tools. And the most important thing is we personalize the experience for each individual employee. So the way we do that is we take them through assessments. We learn, what's keeping you up at night. That'll generate activities, recommendations, and next steps, as well as what goals and objectives do you have. And so that will create a path as well.
But there's more to it than education, right, Sam? Like, obviously education is foundational, but if we look at smoking, we've had definitive proof that smoking causes lung cancer for 70 years. We still have a huge number of people who smoke. Yes. They know it's bad for them, but they still do it. So what do you do in that case? How do you go above and beyond the education to say, hey, listen, this is something, these question. Are tools, this is practicality here.
Yes. So that's the perfect point. So there's a huge difference between financial literacy and financial wellness. So financial literacy is kind of the old school. Here's the basics. Here's how to budget, save, prepare for buying a home. Why is retirement important? What's the value of having a health savings account? What's the value of insurance, right? So obviously we cover that in a great amount of detail, thousands of art pieces of content. But the other dimensions that we add to make this a wellness program are we have behavioral assessments. So we have an assessment which is very much like a Myers-Briggs called Your Money Personality. So an employee will go through that experience, and the first time start learning about how their personality and their traits and the way that their psychological and physiological reaction to making financial decisions really it contributes to the financial situation that they're in. So that's where the more holistic approach can really help. There's quite often not a knowledge gap necessarily for employees. It's more that they're less likely to want to make financial decisions, or they're more focused on the present than they are in the future, or that they're much more independent. They don't seek any financial education or advice from others. So these are the things that we help users start to understand, which is significant. And then the other dimension that we add to make this holistic is we have a hub around really financial stress. So it's helping employees to assess what their stress level is. How significant is this? What's contributing to that stress? But then also, how can I mitigate the effects of stress, such as me being less productive at work or whatever it might be, while I'm putting new financial behaviors into place and improving my outcomes? So we're very much in the behavior change business. We want to help employees make incremental changes to the way they approach their finances. If we can show them, hey, you just make a small change in the way you're managing your finances, whether it's the way you're paying off debt or the benefit of contributing a little bit more to retirement, small change, huge long-term upside. That's how we can get that incremental change to happen. And crucially, everything that we do for the employees, we track and we can report back to the employer. So seeing that this is the engagement with the platform, this is the knowledge gain that the employees have had. This is how they've improved their financial situation since we started the program a year ago. More of them are saving, have a will, paying credit cards off in full, indicating they're on track with financial goals. So financial wellness today is not just personalized for the individuals. It's also affecting behavior change. It's trackable. You can draw a direct line to ROI. And these programs are very, very easy to make discoverable for employees. And you know, to a large extent, they run themselves. But you know, we do obviously have a success team that supports our clients to make sure they're getting the most value out of the program. And helping to justify that cost for clients that we're working with.
Excellent. Thanks, Sam. And I really like the slide that you put together here, because it is showing the similarities that we traditionally see in the health and productivity space and the employee wellness space, which is traditionally just focused on the limitations of health, right? Mental health, physical health, integrated health, these sort of things. And when you look at finances on the outside, some employers have a difficult time sort of justifying how that could be. Hopefully we made a pretty good case for that. But of course, when you start talking behavior change and new habit forming and all these things, these are central pillars to the success of somebody embarking on a health improvement journey. And if your stress, like any of us are, is related to finances, it just seems like this is a natural extension. This is a natural progression for organizations as well as individuals to want to embark and help mitigate that stress. So you can definitely see, from our perspective, how these issues are intertwined with one another, and how this truly is a central pillar of modern well-being strategies in place. I'm just wondering,
indeed.
obviously,
And
go ahead.
I was just going to say, each company will tend to have different priorities and outcomes. We'll sit down with them and say, what would you want to see after a year where you would consider this to be a successful program? So for some of them, it's increased benefits utilization. For others, it's the corporate culture approach. For others, it might be just seeing engagement and improvements in employees' financial health. So we'll kind of build a program based on what each client is looking to achieve.
And it all comes down to how organizations really want to help support their people, right? So excellent. We're coming up on time. Is there any little tidbit of knowledge or extra piece that you want to share before we turn it over to Daryl?
I think the best thing is if you want to reach out to me or Tyler, to you directly, and just kind of learn more about what an application could look like for your organization. Like I said, each client company has different priorities, different workforces, different pain points, different demographics. So, we understand this has to make sense for an employer, and it has to show value. And we can at least explore that together and, see where this could potentially be in your wellness future.
Excellent. Thanks, Sam. Good parting words. Over to you, Daryl.
Well, thank you, Tyler and Sam. Obviously, some really intriguing conversation going on, so much so that we're not going to get a chance to go through the questions, but we have all of them submitted and we will respond to you personally. I want to thank everyone for their time. I hope that if this is your first webinar, you'll come and join us on the website and have a look at the other 27. Wishing you all a great day. Thank you again, Tyler and Sam. Much appreciated.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day. Start saving.